Thank you so much. So, we're talking with Douglas Ewert today, a member of the AACM, as well as he has his own group and his own art pieces, his own installations, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. But anyway, Douglas Ewert was also a really good friend of my dad's and a treasured friend, and someone who, in Dad's final days, would come by and Dad would be like, I don't want to see anybody. And Douglas would be like, I'm just going to take a moment, just a moment. And then he'd come in and he'd lift Dad's spirits, and it was like all good. And so Douglas has just always been special to me in that way. But today we're just going to have a conversation about the art ensemble, the AACM, my dad a little bit, but and also what Douglas is doing now, because as we know, life goes on. So it's up to you.
Well, Mamba, it's an honor and a pleasure to be here with you. Your father was so impactful in my life. And you know, the interesting thing about it is you never quite realize the depth of some relationships until down the line.
Right.
You know?
Right.
I mean, he was always important to me. I met your father probably around 66, 67. Saw him at concerts and he was such a compelling spirit, you know, engaging, always not only having fabulous acumen as a musician, but I would say a shaman spirit. That's how I saw
And for those that don't know what shaman is,
a shaman is a spiritual leader, a person that's connected in a very spiritual way, in a very deep way, connected to the ancestors, a visionary, someone that you can rely on to have the fundamental principles of life.
yes,
And very solidly entrenched in these ideas. And your father was that.
Wow.
And when he played, he went far in and far out. By that I meant he went far within himself so that he could be transported outside.
Right.
So I having met Malachi, and Malachi Magustat favors, and following the at that time they weren't the art ensemble yet,
Right.
but it was Malachi Favors, Roscoe Mitchell, Philip Wilson, and Lester Bowie.
Okay.
And then eventually, Philip went and joined the Paul Butterfield Blues Band, and so it became just that trio.
Got it. Right. Okay.
And man, there's some moments of being transported by the music that were so instrumental in my inspiration and my development as a person and as an artist. Watching them play, and they played a variety of things. They played all kinds of things, marches,
Right.
You name it. They played it, and of course, in addition to original compositions, and everyone had a arsenal of what were called little instruments,
Right.
Which your father was a main exponent of that within the AACM. He was one of the visionaries, and he had, I remember one particular instrument he made. It was 2 cans about this big, maybe 5 inches in diameter and maybe 8 or 10 inches tall, and he would fill them with water.
Really?
And he had He had them tied together with a piece of wire, and he would shake them together. And of course, he had a variety of bells, tambourines, things like that. And so
you guys had your own original sound effects, if you will.
absolutely, that was
No
always
synthesizing.
well, the synthesizing. The interesting thing about AACM is that many members were interested in electronic music. Joseph Jarman was one of the first persons I saw with a theremin. He had one of those small theremins. Theremin was a Russian inventor that invented a lot of electronic instruments during the 20s and the 30s. And in fact, he was married to a black woman.
Hence the inventions. No, I'm kidding.
Would you pause that for a second?